All right, everyone, welcome back to another pre-race preview. I do these for all the Ontario triathlons, kind of the big ones in the area. So I've done Muskoka as well as Tremblant, which is not in Ontario, which is in Quebec. But I definitely like to do all these to help people out, to avoid some of the pitfalls that I went through in the early part of my triathlon career, and that would have saved me a lot of grief and aggravation and helped me have a better race. So hope you enjoy these. Give us a like and comment if you enjoyed these on the YouTube video, because that goes a long way to pushing this video out to people that need it to help them improve on their races. So, who am I? I am Mark Cullen. I'm the co-founder and head coach at the LP Endurance Club. We are based out of Kitchener-Waterloo, but have athletes all over Canada who follow our structured training programs, so our performance plan or our one-on-one coaching plan. So, if that's something you're of interest in, feel free to shoot me a message or pop on our website, lpfit.ca. And then you can also follow me on Instagram, Marky Cull Coach. There's a Y missing in there, but Marky Cull Coach, and I do also pre-race consultations or just short-term training plans. If you're not interested in maybe joining the club, you can also do some of those one-off meetings to get some one-on-one help with myself. And I've also done Barrelman 3 times, one of my favorite races here in Ontario. Always good for a PR bike split. Always sneaky on the weather, sometimes windy, sometimes hot, but also love this swim course as well. And amazing to finish with the backdrop of Niagara Falls as well. So let's get into it. Our itinerary for today, I'll talk about kind of what you should be doing in the final prep weeks and days leading into the race. Talk about some of the pacing strategies, nutrition, gear, logistics around the race, and then we'll review the actual specific course. So we'll go through the swim, bike, and run, and also some of the transition stuff you need to know for a race like Barrelman. Definitely a unique race with 2 transition areas, so makes things interesting, but they're so good at making things smooth that once you get it down packed, you'll be rolling, and it's really no issue and not something you need to stress about. All right, final weeks of training. So when we talk about 2 to 3 weeks out, so this is about 14 to 28 days from the race. These are going to be kind of your final bigger weeks where you can do kind of some of those final long rides or bigger brick workouts, and where you kind of hit your peak long rides and long runs, as well as your peak volume weeks in there. And really, a lot of that focus is around kind of that specificity around the race. So that 70.3 half iron sort of pace, working on that race fueling, that race pacing. Also a great chance to practice some of your race gear. If you have a aero helmet or a disc wheel that you put on your bike, things like that, just knowing that they work in different conditions and that you're comfortable riding them. In the end, whatever's the most comfortable is going to be the best for your race day performance. And then also practicing your transitions. This is one with a little bit of practice, you can save a lot of free time for not actually having to build any extra fitness. So there's lots of awesome videos online of how to improve your T1 and T2. Don't waste time in there. Just the quicker you get out of there, the quicker you are moving towards that finish line. Do what you need to do in there, but don't dilly-dally. Get to that finish line as quickly as possible. And then when we talk about 1 week out, so that's 7 to 14 days is where you can really start to taper things off. So that final weekend, right before the race, you're doing maybe something closer to a 1.5 to 2.5 hour ride, and a shorter long run, maybe something like 75 to 85 minutes, maybe with a little bit of intensity in there around race pace just to stay sharp, but you're really lowering the volume. You want to keep the intensity in there because if you take that out, you're really going to start to get flat before the race. So we'd lower the volume, keep the intensity. And then if you have strength training, that's where you'll want to reduce that to a little more mobility activation, nothing that's going to take away from your race. And in terms of overall volume, dropping around 30 to 50% of kind of those peak weeks that you were doing 2 to 3 weeks out. And then we talk about race week again. We want to keep that consistency in the disciplines, especially swimming. You want to keep that feel for the water right up to the race, but bike and run, that's where you'll do a little bit less, maybe 1 to 2 of each discipline leading in. There'll be shorter workouts, but you'll also do some race pace or a little bit faster intervals that are shorter in there to, again, keep the nervous system firing, stay sharp for the race, but not a lot of total volume in that week. Again, on the strength training side of things, we're really just focusing on mobility activation to make sure the key muscle areas are firing for the race. And then we want to start later in the week. I'll talk about the nutrition loading, but just making sure you're getting lots of good sleep that week, because the night before the race is usually not a great sleep night because you're restless and excited for the race. So definitely get that sleep in early in the week and you'll be primed for the race. One bad night's sleep before the race is not going to affect your race if you've done well the week leading in. All right, let's talk about the race schedule. So this one is you got registration, bike check-in, and gear bag pickup on the Saturday. So that's where you'll go in. You're already registered there. Go in there. They'll give you all your bike numbers, your swim cap, time chip, all those sorts of things. And you'll also, with a race like this, you need to check in your bike and rack it the day before. So make sure you have that bike all cleaned, good to go, and racked the day before the race. And then you'll also pick up all your gear bags that you'll bring the morning of. Again, make sure you read the athlete guide and all of the details on the website. I'm not affiliated with Barrelman, so make sure that the final details, you read all of those on the website. If you haven't done some of these before, I definitely recommend attending the athlete briefing, which are at 12 and 2:30 on the Saturday. And just remember, you need to have that bike checked in by 3:30 that day. And the expo's open 10 to 4 that day. So 10:30 to 3:30, get there, check all your stuff, and then go put your feet up and get some carbs in you for the next day. When we talk about the race itself, so with a T1 in Welland and then T2 in Niagara Falls, you will have racked your bike in T1 in Welland. But for a race like this, I do recommend, unless you have somebody with you who can who isn't racing, who can drive between the two sites and can maybe drop you in the morning at transition 1 and then pick you up at transition 2 or the race end on race day, I would definitely recommend taking that shuttle bus. So you can park at that Upper Rapids parking lot and take the shuttle over to the start line in T1. I've done that every year. I've done it and it's super seamless and really nice. It's not a very long bus ride and just a chance to chill out before. So T1 transition is open from 6 to 8:15. There is another athlete briefing in case you couldn't make it the day before. And then by 8:15, you got to be out of transition with 8:29, the start of the elite wave, and then 8:30, the age group wave. So make sure you know your age group wave start time, which will be on the website and in the athlete guide. So make sure you check that out. I'm going to focus on just the triathlon today, but you can see when the bike run starts as well, which is 9:10 a.m. So you would start on your bike for that one. All the awards are down there. So 1:30 for the swim bike, 3:15 and 3:30 for the bike run and triathlon respectively. And then, yeah, you can get your bike out of there essentially after transition 2 reopens. So that's after the last cyclist enters, which will be 2:20 or earlier if people make it in before then. All right, let's talk about the final 1 to 2 days. So nutrition wise, this is a good chance to do what you've heard of a carb load before. This does not mean just gorging so much like heavy food that by the time you get to race day, you just feel like you're 10 pounds heavier. There's lots of ways to do this and get the carb load you need in without just filling yourself up like that. So what you'll be doing is upping the percentage of carbs in your diet, and you'll want to be adding electrolytes to your water to start that sodium load, as well as limiting fats and fiber and veggies and kind of those last couple days there. So what I usually recommend in terms of a carb load is in the final 1 to 2 days before, I'm typically recommending somewhere in the 8 to 10 grams per kilogram of body weight of carbs to target that day. So I'm a 70 kilogram athlete. So if I'm targeting 10 grams per kilogram of body weight, I would be targeting 700 grams of carbs on the day. So I'll get that through 3 pretty good sized meals. But then I'm also adding in like juice, Gatorade, candy, in between things like Pop-Tarts that are 70 grams of carbs, like are easy ways to up that carb total without actually having to just gorge yourself with like loads and loads of pasta like you've seen in the prototypical carb load in movies. So you can go about it another way and not have your gut all full or your GI system all bunged up by the time the race comes. So gear, there's lots of awesome gear checklists. There might even be one on the Barrelman website. I did not check, but on Ironman website, on Training Peaks. If you Google triathlon race day checklist, there's lots of great checklists you can print out and double check before you leave home. But some of those key things around your bike, helmet, running shoes, wetsuit, goggles, your nutrition that you need. Are you going to have those lock laces in your running shoes that you can slip on quickly? Not an essential, but a nice to have. And then if you have anything electronic, so your bike computer, your power pedals, your electronic shifting, all of those things will require the batteries to be charged. So either charge them before you leave, but also make sure you bring an extra device or an extra charger. It never hurts to have. And then training, you'll again just be doing those short kind of shakeout workouts in the 15 to 30-minute range in each discipline, with maybe a couple 30-second to minute pickups kind of around race pace or a bit quicker. Again, we just want to keep that nervous system firing so that when you get there on race day, you are well rested, but the nervous system's still fired up and you can get to your power and your pace and you're well engaged on that day. And then logistics, make sure you've done kind of a walkthrough of transition 1 and transition 2. Transition 2, you might not get a chance to, and it's a pretty simple one anyways. You're going to come in on your bike, find your number, rack it there. Your bag will be waiting for you. You'll put on your run stuff and run out the other side. But T1 in Welland is a good one to check out ahead of time, because you'll come up out of the water and then up some stairs, and you need to know how to get to your bike rack. It can be a little confusing in there so that you don't overshoot your bike. Know where you're going and then where to exit and where that mount line is going to be. And remember, always helmet on first before you pick up your bike. And then when you are mounting your bike, make sure you are past that mount line, or the Tri-Ontario officials will be very mad at you and may even give you a penalty. So just to make sure you mount after the line, and when you're dismounting in T2, it's before the mount line. So you can never be on your bike when you are in the transition zones. All right, so mentally rehearse what you're going to do at your transition spots too. So like when you're coming out of the water, knowing that you're going to go wetsuit off, helmet and goggles off, or wet cap and goggles off, and then helmet on, and then maybe you need to put your shoes on and then go from there. Or no, if you're doing that flying mount. And then just make sure you got your race plan all settled. So what that pacing plan looks like, if you're doing a power target or heart rate target or perceived effort on the bike. And then also your nutrition strategy for the bike and the run as well, which we'll talk about kind of what they have on course. So know what you're going to bring with you and what you're going to get on course to hit your totals. And I'll give you some guidelines around some totals you should be looking to hit in those races to make sure that you're sustaining yourself from a hydration and fueling standpoint. All right, race morning. So you've done most of your carb loading and sodium loading the 2 days leading in, but the morning of, you'll still want to eat a carb-rich meal. I'm usually aiming for something like 150 grams of carbs total. I do like 3 of those small frozen waffles with a bunch of maple syrup on them and maybe a banana in there as well. And then make sure you're doing a good sodium load that morning. So personally, I do close to 1,500 milligrams of sodium in my water between a couple bottles that morning, and then staying topped off right till the start of the race with either having a gel 15 to 30 minutes before, or I personally just sip on sports drink till about 15 minutes before. And then make sure you have all that gear packed the day before and nutrition all ready to go for the morning. It's funny, we can get race brain and forget a lot of things. So while you're still level-headed the day before and got energy, make sure you have all that stuff set up. And then obviously with this one, make sure that you use the washroom, give yourself lots of time before that. And then there's 2 transition areas. So remember where you're parking and build yourself extra time. But my recommendation again is that Upper Rapids parking lot at T2, and take the shuttle to the start, and then your car's just waiting for you at the end of the race when you need it. All right, when we talk about during the race, so I'll talk about each of the disciplines. So first, swim, really just making sure you're not giving away too much energy on the day. So nice, long and strong, good pull. Don't overdo it on the kick and jack that heart rate and breathing way up. So stay nice and calm. Great part about this swim is it does have that wire that you can follow there. It gets a little busy on the wire. So in the past years, what I've done is just gone 1 or 2 body lengths over from the wire, and I just sight the people who are swimming on the wire, make sure I'm keeping that same kind of gap to them, and then it's a little less hectic. But Long and strong on the swim. When we talk about the bike, most people will be targeting somewhere between 78 to 85% of FTP if you go power based. So maybe a slightly slower rider would be in that 78 to 80% range, and then a faster rider who's maybe going under 3 hours will be in the low to mid 80s. When we talk about bike carbs, definitely this is when the heart rate's a bit lower than the run and the time where you can preload and save yourself a lot of grief and aggravation on the run. So typically targeting even on the upper end 70 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. And then about 750 mils of fluids. You'll want to up that if it's hotter. And then 750 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium per hour as well. Again, those can go up depending on a bigger athlete who sweats a lot might need far more than those fluid and sodium guidelines. If you go on Precision Fuel and Hydration's website, they have a cool fuel and hydration calculator where you answer a couple questions around how much you sweat, what kind of distances and stuff you're doing, and it'll actually give you kind of a bit of a guideline around fueling and hydration and sodium that you should be targeting. So I definitely recommend you do that. That can give you maybe an idea of where you've maybe fallen short in the past and set you up for success. So jumping to the run, in terms of nutrition, we've done a lot of our loading on the bike there, and run can sometimes be a little tougher to digest. So I usually recommend something in the 40 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. Great if you can handle more, but if you did well on the bike in terms of fueling, you should have enough to sustain you at that. Really try and stay on your hydration. So water at every aid station. In the past years, it's been definitely hot at this race, so don't mess around with that. Make sure that you stay on top of your hydration on this. So just make a good habit of water at every aid station and maybe one over the head to continue to keep the core temperature as cool as possible. And think about ways you're going to get some of that sodium in as well, whether you're going to use the F2C Hydradurance, which is on the run course, which is an electrolyte drink. So that would be a good one. You could even do a water and an F2C Hydra at every aid station, and that would allow you to get some of that sodium in. When we talk about run pacing, if you've run an open half marathon, so like a pure half marathon, not in a triathlon, you could target something like 20 to 30 seconds per K. Slower than that, so say if your open half marathon pace was 5 minutes per K, you could be targeting something like 5:20 to 5:30 on that. There's some great calculators online, like the Jack Daniels VDOT calculator, that's VDOT. And if you have a recent race result, you can put that in. It'll give you an equivalent half marathon time, and then you can use that to kind of calculate some guidelines so that you don't go out too hard on the run and end up blowing up, because it is a decently tough run with a couple hills on there that will challenge you. All right, and we talk about the swim. So up on the right there was that P1. So you can see it definitely looks a little bit confusing because there's a lot of racks in weird places that they kind of work around the buildings that are there. So that's where walking the transition ahead of time is going to be really key to making sure you know where your bike is. It's an in-water start here, so they'll send off the waves depending on cap color and time. So make sure you know your wave start time. And it's just essentially a clockwise rectangle here where you go along the upper part here and then make a right and then another right. So the buoys are always on your right shoulder, going about 900 meters on the two edges, and then just a short like 60 to 100 meters on the sides there. And then it's a nice kind of rock base, little rocks that you'll stand on as you get out of the water. And there's always volunteers to help out there. And then just be nice and smooth here because you do run up some stairs to the transition area where the grandstands are. And it's easy to get excited when you have the crowd there and jack your heart rate way up. That'll take you a while to calm down on the bike. So just be nice and smooth on there. High five some people and enjoy your way to transition and think through what you're going to be doing when you get to your bike. All right, this bike course. So it's an 87K, not a full 90K. Just remember that. And this is definitely a good one for a bike PR. There's only 54 meters of elevation gain. This is one of the flattest bike courses you will find anywhere. But with a flat course can come challenges of wind. So for example, last year we had headwind coming off the west here, which when you look at the map actually worked out pretty well, but you had to battle headwinds for roughly 20 to 25K to start. So you really had to stay relaxed there and stay patient. But then once you turned around, it was essentially 30 to 70K of tailwind and then a bit of crosswind on this Niagara Parkway. So Depending on what way the wind is coming from, it can get a little challenging on that respect, but I'm going to send good vibes out in the universe that hopefully you guys get a nice, calm, beautiful day and nice 20 degrees, so it's not too hot too. So putting that out in the world for you. They have aid stations at 30 and 60 kilometers where you can drop bottles and also pick up what they have there. So they'll have F2C glycodurance on the bike course, which is the carb and sodium mix. So that you can get some carbs from there. They said they'll have assorted gels, water, and banana halves. Really good spelling of banana there. I already talked about fueling and kind of pacing on the last one, so I won't go through that again. But yeah, just there's, I think, maybe one no passing zone on a couple small little pathway sections, but for the most part, they're good quality roads that you can ride really fast on. And yeah, have some fun with it. It's a really fun ride and definitely a good one for a bike PB. I think all my bike PBs are from this one, so enjoy. And then we get to the run. So the run, depending on how hot it is out, can definitely be a challenging day, but it's definitely got some challenging sections to the course. So you can see aid stations are going to be every 2K. I talked about F2C hydrodurance on this one. So remember, hydrodurance for F2C does not have any carbs in it. So if you're looking for carbs on course, you'll need to be targeting things like Coke, gels, fruit, pretzels, those type of things, or bring some of your own fuel along. We already talked about fueling and pacing on there, but there's 77 meters of elevation gain, and a lot of that comes. So you first come out of transition, kind of a net downhill as you're going along the parkway here. You'll do this little out and back here as you see 4 and 5K. And then as you make that sharp right turn, it's definitely a tough little hill here between 5 and 6K. It's probably about 400 meters long, but it's definitely a steep one. And one, don't be afraid to walk it if it's going to mean that you're going to be able to run well for the rest of the race. And then you're just kind of in this like kind of flat, slightly net up and downhill section on this long out and back. I should be clear, when you started the run, you go down the parkway and do this long out and back first. And then that's when you come do this out part, do the climb. And then as you come, you'll get to bomb back down that hill. You'll make a right and go back to transition and do the loop around, and then you'll do it again. So that first turnaround out and back, which is a beautiful section here, and then that climb, the rolling out and back downhill. And then remember, both loops, you'll have a slight net uphill as you climb back to transition. And yeah, you definitely want to, it's 2 loops, so you want to be smart on that first loop so you can save some gas for the second loop, especially for that hill on there. And really, if it's going to be hot out, really work on managing your core temperature on that. So staying hydrated at every aid station and cooling as much as possible with water and ice if they have it on course. All right, and that is our Barrelman pre-race webinar. Hopefully this was super helpful for you and you got your pacing, your fueling, and feel comfy about the course now. If you have any questions on this or looking for a pre-race consult to get a little more dialed specifically to yourself, just you can find me on Instagram, markycull_coach, or feel free to give a comment on and a like on this video. Happy to help you out. Best of luck in a couple weeks. Looking forward to seeing you all crush it out there. Cheers.